Cracked up from the sound of it. I said no luck. I said no luck. I said no luck. Sleepers got dirt. Said you would change, man. Take you to the top. A better game plan. No more living dirt. Leave it in higher hands. Leave it in higher hands. Leave it in higher hands. You, come on. You, come on. A little bird spot where your soul rocks. Take
Well, to use paleography to verify the chronology. Although people use it then to make comparisons, we have an obvious circular argument here. What we need to always bear in mind is how things get dated, particularly in ancient times. I mean, in modern times, we know to some extent how things get dated. But imagine you're a historian, okay, from say 300 AD or 500 AD, possibly even 1200 AD or later. First of all, it's not entirely clear that your intention in writing history is the same as the intention of a modern historian, namely to give a faithful chronicle of events. We cannot take this for granted at all. As a matter of fact, it's a fair assumption that many ancient writings had a sort of moralistic purpose. They were much more in keeping with, like Roman histories was showing, the grandeur of certain figures, giving uplifting accounts, and so forth. This is very, very important because the results that we're talking about are going, in some cases, are going to look and seem so preposterous to you that you will be very tempted to just turn your mind off or turn your back to the whole thing. And what Ellen and I are above all trying to do is not make you throw out the data. You may discard Flamenco's interpretation of the data, you may discard the interpretations that we have of the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible. You see on the right-hand side, this is the Roman Empire from 82 BC to the 3rd century AD. On the left-hand side, we have the Roman Empire from the 3rd century through the 6th century AD. And we are writing the Roman emperors in the order in which they occur according to the chronicles and according to the histories, even according to modern history. To read the diagram, the spaces, say from here to here, represent the length of reign of that emperor. So, in other words, here's 41 years, a long reign. This diagram is supposed to show a kind of symmetry between a period of time in which you have a sequence of Roman rulers, and then a period of time more than 300 years later in which you have another sequence of Roman emperors. Now, let's start here with Augustus. Okay, he reigns for 41 years, and Constantine the Great Augustus reigns for 31 years. And you say, well, big deal. I agree, that's 10 years difference. But follow what happens after here. You have Tiberius compared to Constantius II, 23 and 24. When we come to Caligula, it's 4 years and 2 years. Caligula is paired to Julian the Apostate. Then we have Claudius, 13 years, and Valentinian, 11 years, and so forth. Now, so you understand the principle behind the figure. It is meant to show the symmetry between lengths of reign of emperors who are understood to have reigned more than 300 years apart. Toward the end of this period in Roman history, we have a sequence of 4 emperors who all reigned for less than 1 year. Okay, they died or they got off by the legions or whatever it was. And that's paired by a sequence of rulers who all reigned less than 1 year on the other side. Okay, very, very conspicuous. Now, the other thing that's interesting is this period, sort of in Roman history, ends with an invasion by the Goths, where you have Caracalla. Oddly enough, exactly on the other side, you have a second, let's put it this way, quote unquote, second invasion of the Goths. Okay, on the left we have the Roman Empire from the 1st century BC to the 3rd century AD. Then we have the Holy Roman Empire.
Are you guys getting it? Are you getting it? Look at the comparisons. Listen, and then we'll jump into it further.
The 10th century to the 13th century. In other words, on the left here, we have largely the same people who are that we had on the right-hand side in the previous one, but now they're being compared to rulers of the Holy Roman Empire. Okay, basically about 1,050 years later, and you see that we have another.
Did you hear what they said? About 1,500 years later. Did anybody hear an echo? Echo, echo, echo. Because that's what these are, echoes in history. Maybe they aren't really there. Let's find out.
symmetry. Okay, this is how it's reported. But remember, we have to bracket almost everything of this kind that we're here, because we don't know what the veracity of the chronicles is, what the intention of the chronicles was, or even what the people really understood by it.
I don't think anybody is in any position, really, to make a hypothesis. You get a million ideas occurring to you when you really look into this. Many people that I talk to, they want to get a hypothesis, they want to go off and run with it, you know, to the exclusion of everything else before they understand anything about really what's going on. And I think that people have no business making hypotheses about this until they really understand the extent and the depth and the weight of what he has done. I mean, any like really nailed down hypothesis. You know, I mean, obviously lots of crazy ideas are going to occur to you, but you know, because they occur to me all the time. You know, and I try to follow them out as much as I can. But I mean, we are not making hypotheses here because really we're not in a position to.
Remember the little pattern up here? Okay, where we have a little block of history here, and then we shift it back and so forth. Fomenko's opinion is the only legitimate history. Now, this doesn't mean that nothing happened before this. The only history that our documents address themselves to is from the period of 300 AD up till modern times. Everything else is a projection of that material, that historical material, back in time due to the errors. Everything else is a projection of that material, that historical, only history that our documents address themselves to is from the period of 300 AD up till modern times. Is from the period of 300 AD up till modern times.
So 300 AD to modern times. So what are they trying to say? So here we go. This is what they're trying to say. They've taken all of the evidence, all of the details going back through history, to all of the researchers and historians, and they set it down on a big timeline sheet, and they found reoccurrences in the same mirrored image in just different periods in history. What they found out is that all of these instances are actually true. Not meaning every single one, but that has happened in history. But what has happened was they have mirrored it and inflated history to make everything seem so old. But ladies and gentlemen, he's saying most of these things happened after 300 AD. And mostly of the things that did happen, they happened after 900 actually. So most of these things are much more recent than we believe. Yet they paste an old on top of it, so we do not look into this. And then we have such a bias because we think, oh, the division, I mean, it goes so deep and we don't understand the different levels. See, when I started this, I didn't start out in religion. I start out in history and science. I grew up in the hood and I was gifted in many ways. I still am. I mean, and I've seen the good and the bad, and I've been all over the world, so I've seen all types of people. And then I had a history all pegged out, and then I started reading and got blown away. I mean, there's so much we don't know, and you know, the stuff we do know, we don't even know. It goes so much deeper, and just a little twist, just a little twist of it is all they needed. Just a little twist. And just a little twist is all they needed to throw us all off. So you may think you know who you are. I'm 1,600,000 million years old. I'm the essence of essence. They have destroyed us on so many levels. To drinking milk. We're not even supposed to have nothing to do with milk products. Cheese, nothing. And then yet that was told that to us that that's healthy, that we should eat it. I trip. All my family get disease and they're dying. And they'll all eat pork and cheese and milk. And I'm telling them that's not what we're supposed to eat. And I'm showing them all like the natural foods that was never hybridized, that still hold the electrical properties to it. And all the different fruits and vegetables that help the different body parts and the different regions. And I'm trying to tell them what they should do, like what you eat in the morning, what you eat at night, what promotes this, what promotes that, why you getting headaches, why you always getting upset and blaring off the mouth, jumping at anybody, why you always thinking crazy. It's because of the food and the stuff you drink. I mean, they've done so much harm to us just for one purpose, so we all know who we are and they can continue to steal our land and our resources while we fight and bicker amongst each other about stuff you have no idea what you're talking about. I was in the same boat. I can't even fathom the stuff I was speaking. It's nonsense. But that's what they do to you. They make the chaos sound like order. Order out of chaos. So let's finish this video out.
Everything else is a projection of that material, that historical material, back in time, due to the errors that scholars made in trying to synchronize relative blocks of history. Remember, there are three shifts, so that one's 333 years, one is 1,053 years, and the other one is 1,778 years. He has an account of each one of these and how these could have happened historically to produce those shifts. But his is what we might call one radical interpretation. Now, before you say this guy's out of his mind, what Fomenko does, given one pair of duplicates, what Fomenko does is says, well, can we establish astronomically which one is valid? So, take, for example, Thucydides' Peloponnesian Wars. There are three eclipses mentioned in the Peloponnesian Wars, and they're described with great fullness. There's a lunar eclipse, an annular solar eclipse, and another lunar eclipse. You can infer what the path of totality was, and the whole deal from these descriptions. The creators of modern chronology, namely Scaliger and Petavius, tried to astronomically solve the problem of those eclipses. We're not able to do it without leaving out some of the data provided by Thucydides, who, by the way, says he was a witness of this. So what Fomenko did, he said, let's make no presuppositions about this. Where are the exact astronomical solutions for this triad of eclipses? And there turns out to be one in the 11th century AD and one in the 12th century AD, and no others. So what Fomenko does quite regularly is when he will appeal to astronomical arguments to try to determine which is the principal one, and his conclusion, and however crazy it may sound, is extraordinarily well argued, is that the only legitimate history is the modern history from about 300 on, and most of that, by the way, is from 900 on. From 300 on, we got like step on, and most of that, by the way, is from 900 on. And most of that, by the way, is from 900 on. And most of that, by the way, is from 900 on.
Just about 1,000 years, a little over 1,000 years, and you thinking shit is ancient. Wake up! You in the land of Nod. You are ancient, but not that ancient. This stuff didn't happen hundreds of millions of thousands of years ago. Pay attention. Discern for yourself. Find out the words that are truthful and use the information to further your research, to better yourself. Because believe me, this is not just to know that, oh yeah, an ancient culture, oh yeah. That is not what we're doing here. Really, in the end, what you need to do is find that in yourself, to dive deep down and be something better than you are, and to stop doing the bull, stop hurting people, stop making these bad decisions, stop thinking whatever the way you think. Cleanse yourself and cleanse your family. That's what this is about, knowing who you are so you can better yourself. That's what we all have to do if we're gonna build nations. If we're gonna be kings again. You know what I mean? I know my father's family was great, because my grandpa was just unbelievable and my dad was just incredible, and they were so respected, and they had so much gifts. They're so skilled. My mom comes from high chiefs. There's a level of chiefs. There's 12 levels, and there's 20 lower levels, and her family was the highest level chiefs, who eventually became kings. It's called Ali Mokus, which is like the reigning over one whole island, over all chiefs. And this is the history we have. Yeah, I grew up. I was the best gangster. I was the best, everything bad, everything. I did so much dirt. And I thought certain ways like I was cursed. I just think I was cursed to be like this. This is just the way it is. And I didn't understand how true it was. I was cursed. And it wasn't until I looked at myself and I tried to better myself, and I looked at history, and I found who I used to be, and I found the love throughout my family and my culture, and I understood that there's more to this. And the more I learned, the better I became, the stronger I became, the more confident I became. So I continue to grow, and this is your chance to grow. So I understand that getting this information is difficult, and it goes against your beliefs, because cognitive dissonance is real. But we have to overcome this and find the truth.
From 300 on, we got like statuary documents and things like that.
He thinks most of the things that we think of as historical events really did happen, but the question is when and where, and maybe, of course, how many times. And he thinks, well, it didn't happen 10 times, it only happened once, and most of that stuff happened after 900.
Yeah. By the way, and this is something that we need to find out more about. Fameko applies his statistical methods not just to European history, but also to Middle Eastern history, including Egypt, India, and so forth, and it's riddled with repetitions of the same kind.
Would that not seem to indicate, that's almost the most fascinating part, I mean, either the whole thing is a fudge, or astronomically, astrologically, it's repeating itself. When you look at the pattern,
you have no idea how tempting that is. As Ellen mentioned, there was a tradition of studying history astrologically. It starts in the Arab world with a whole series of people. The most definitive was a tradition of studying history astrologically. Was a tradition of studying history astrologically. It starts in the Arab world with a whole series of people. The most definitive treatise was written by a man named Abu History astrologically. It starts in the Arab world. History astrologically. It starts in the Arab world with
What's the common denominator in this illusion we live in? The Arab world. and all the offshoots of those people, the Canaanites of the Bible that come out of Africa.
With a whole series of people. The most definitive treatise was written by a man named Alma Char. He uses, for the astrologers in the office, in the room, he uses Jupiter-Saturn cycles, which have a tendency to occur in the same, what's called the same triplicity, in the same triplicity of signs for long periods of time, except they drift slightly, and every 240 years they change triplicity, and every 960 years they return to the same degree. Now, these methods were translated into Latin, but they were used by all medieval Latin chronologers. Into Latin, but they were used by all medieval Latin chronologers. In other words, what are you going to do to write history if you don't have any documents? You use astrology.
All right, so that's parallel timelines in history. Now let me show you in real life what this looks like. So I caught this, and this is pretty interesting. So if you look over here, it's called the Assyrian captivity. It's called the Assyrian captivity of Israel. Let me set you up. In the period in the history of ancient Israel and Judah, during which several thousand Israelites of ancient Samaria were resettled as captives by Assyria, the northern kingdom of Israel was conquered by the Neo-Assyrian monarchs Tiglath-Pileser and Shalmaneser. The later Assyrian rulers Sargon II and his son and successor Sennacherib were responsible for finishing the 20-year demise of Israel's northern 10-tribe kingdom. Although they did not overtake the southern kingdom, Jerusalem was besieged, but not taken. The tribes forcibly resettled by Assyria later became known as the 10 lost tribes. Biblical account. The captives began in approximately 740 BC. So you see that right there, ladies and gentlemen. 740 BCE. Alright? Now this is before Christ. So 740 years before Christ. Alright? And God and the God of Israel stirred up the spirit of Pul, king of Assyria, and Tiglath-Pileser, king of Assyria, and he carried them away, even the Reubenites and the Gadites and the half-tribe of Manasseh, and brought them unto Hala and Harbor and Hada and to the river Gazan unto this day. So it goes on and on and on. But the time is the one. So the time speaks about 740, right? And I'll bring up the map here. So if I bring up the map, bring the map. Sorry. Yeah, okay. Oh my goodness. Oh, hold on. Alright, so if you look over there, it says Shalmaneser 724 to 729 BC. Now look at this book that I find way more credible than these fools today. Alright, this is called America, being the latest and most accurate description of the New World. Okay. Alright, so I'm going to zoom you in to this book. This great Tartary, which is 1,000 leagues long and 600 broad, reckons 5 chief provinces: the wild Tartary, inhabitants of herdsmen; Sagatai, of which metropolis is Samarkand, famous for the mighty Tamerlane; next Turkestan, then Kitai, which is the great Cham commands; and lastly Old Tartary, according to the Andres Castrensis, the habitation of Gog and Magog. Now we must inquire from what Tartars the Americans are extracted. So, The Tartars was extracted from America. That's what this opinion is. That the Tartars, which about the year 1228 under the command of Genghis Khan, overspread the earth like a deluge, were the successors of the 10 tribes of Israel, which were carried away into captivity to Assyria by Shalmaneser. The name Tartary, other rather Tartary. So this is saying that the Syrian captivity in Israel was in around 1228 AD. So that's a 2,000-year gap. So what was it? Was it 2,000 years before that? Or was it more around this time? Because the video just showed us that history more so happened after 900. So did it happen between 900 and 1228 AD? And we're being fooled in our timelines? I think so. I think so, ladies and gentlemen. And look, you was right here. It's talking about Muhammad, how he had a hard time feeding us his religion. So he brought some of the laws of Moses into Mohammedanism, which became Islam, to enslave the Israelites. And they were just Ishmaelites, which are sons of Abraham. They became the Arabs, the black Arabs, the Moors. So, ladies and gentlemen, there you go.
Astrologically, it starts in the Arab world with a whole series of people. History astrologically, it starts in the Arab world with.
As I can, but I mean, we are not making hypotheses here. Obviously, lots of crazy ideas are going to occur to you, but because they occur to me all down hypotheses. I mean, obviously, lots of crazy ideas are going to occur to you, but because they occur to me all the time. And I try to follow them out as much as I can, but I mean, we are not making hypotheses here because really we're not in a position to.
Remember the little pattern up here? Okay, reported. But remember, we have to bracket almost everything of this kind for the people.
You get a million ideas occurring to you when you really look into this. Many people that I talk to, they want to get a hypothesis, they want to.
The data is incontrovertible. You see on the we have on the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible. Throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible. You see on throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible on the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. Patients that we have on the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. Patients that we have on the data, but you shouldn't throw out the data. In my opinion, the data is incontrovertible. You see on the right-hand side, this is the Roman Empire.